Hi, everyone, and welcome to the resume workshop. We're very excited to have you here, and we're just seeing that a few people are still joining. So just giving them a second to do that. My name is Bethany Dixon. I am a writing instructor in iBASE, and I will be co-hosting this with the wonderful Allison Marlowe, who will introduce herself in just a second. And we're going to be looking at resumes and why resumes are useful, a bit of how to make them, and also how to use some of the really useful resources that are available on campus. So Allison, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I've met a handful of you already. So I'm Allison Marlowe. I am your student advisor with the Renison English Language Institute. Today, I'll be talking a little bit about just my experience with resumes in Canada and kind of what it's like to gain any kind of experience and how to be involved on campus and within the Waterloo community. So we're super excited to get this going with you guys. I know resumes can be very daunting and stressful, so hopefully between myself and Bethany will alleviate a bit of that stress for you guys.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Allison. Okay, so what I'd like to hear from you just at the beginning is a little bit about what you already know about resumes. So if you wouldn't mind, oh, Georgina's joining us. If you wouldn't mind opening that chat for me. Just a quick question. Allison, do we have any like the polls? I do see the last few. Do we have any polls on like experience with resumes in the past or no?
I
see the ones
so,
about
no.
Yeah. Okay, no worries. No worries. That's totally fine. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone again. Hi, Georgina. Great to see you. So what I'd like you to do, please, is just answer for me in the chat. Have you ever created a resume before? Just give me a yes or a no. This way I kind of have a chance to know what you have done before with resumes. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of no's, which is good news in that this will be a useful workshop for you because we're going to go over the basics, which will be great. Okay, a lot of no's. It's funny that normally that I'm not that excited about a no, but I'm excited to see that lots of people haven't, because then this will hopefully be useful. Okay, excellent. So let me get started then. I'm going to share my screen for a second. And we're going to go through a few pieces of information about the resume. So let me make this full screen. See if this will work for me, sorry. Okay. Allison and Georgina, can you guys give me a thumbs up if the screen share is working okay? Yeah, okay, great. So looking at resumes, the basic information you need to know about a resume is that resumes are documents that are used to apply to jobs. They're usually 1 to 2 pages long, and they summarize your skills and your experience in a very concise way. So you don't even need to have full sentences. For almost everything you will write, it will have a verb and information about what you did, but you don't have long full sentences like you would have in a story or a cover letter when you're talking more in depth about your work. A resume is really made for somebody to look at very quickly and see, why would you be good for this job? So why is there a maximum length? Why do I say 1 to 2 pages? The answer is that employers read it very, very quickly. And they usually only read half a page before they decide if they're interested in you and they want to read more, or if they're not interested. So you want to make it so clear and so concise that they will be very interested and it will be easy for them to read through it. And then they might say, yes, I really am impressed with what you've done and all the skills you have. I want to read more and I want to invite you to an interview. So the main goal with your resume is to be invited to an interview. After that, hopefully you'll get a job. but the resume doesn't go directly to the job. It goes to getting the interview where you can prove more about your skills and why you would be a good fit for the job. Okay, so what I'd like to do is share with you an example resume, and I'm going to show you the different parts of it. And then the good news is you will actually have a chance to start playing around with a sample resume yourself and filling in a little bit of your own information. Of course, we don't have time in the workshop for you to write your entire resume because that takes a lot of time, but you can kind of start playing around with a template. The good news is with resumes, you don't have to make up your own format. You can use a template that's already formatted for you, and you just put in your information into that template. Okay, so let me just briefly switch to sharing a, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just going to switch to sharing this sample. Or I guess I'll just go with my whole screen. That way you can see anything that I'm looking at. So I'm going to look at this, and here we have a sample. Okay, so again, if anybody can't see something, and if you have your camera on, feel free to just wave at me or tell me you can't see it. But this is an example resume. This is not somebody's real resume because I wouldn't want to give their personal information. So anything here is changed, and it's not somebody's personal actual real name or real address or anything like that. So at the top, can you tell me in the chat, what do you see at the very top of the resume? What's the first information that the employer is going to want to see? Let's hear if you can briefly open the chat and then just tell me, what is it that we see? Yes, okay, people say the name. Right away, I want to know who is actually applying for this. And so I know in this example, and as I said, it's not a real student, but just as an example, in this example, I see Sarah Wu, and then I see her address, her email address, and her phone number. So I know right away as the employer who it is and how to contact them. So that you should have that as well in your resume right away, your information. You don't need everything about you, but just that basic is important. And some of you, if you have a LinkedIn account, which you'll learn to do later this term if you haven't already, if you have a LinkedIn account, or some of you have your own personal website, all of those you can also include on here, especially if it shows like your coding skills or anything else that's relevant to the jobs you want. So this particular one doesn't have that, but you can have another line right in under the email address and everything to show that. Next is a summary. So the summary of qualifications is where you're going to show the most important information from the rest of the resume. So again, if the employer is only looking at the beginning, they want to see, do you even have the skills for this job? And in this case, they see analytical and problem-solving skills, mechanical skills, electrical circuit experience, communication and teamwork skills. And this person was applying for an engineering job, so these particular skills were relevant to that job. Then education, and you don't always have to have this exact order, but this is a common order. Education, saying what is the current degree, what was the past degree. When you're in your first year, you usually list your high school. Later on, you don't have to include high school on your resume. Then for this person, their most relevant experience was in their class projects, even more relevant than their work experience. So they put their relevant project right after education. So in this person, they did some really interesting design in Lego. They built a solar car with a team. They did some smart lighting design. So all of this, again, it's an engineering example. So they're showing what they can do that's relevant to an engineering job. And then they talk about actual work experience. So they worked as an auto mechanic and as a barista. And then they briefly list one of their awards. So this is a one-page resume. And some people go onto 2 pages, that's okay. But you never, never, never want to go more than 2 pages. Your employer will not read it. They will get bored and they will just throw it away. So make sure it's either 1 or 2 pages. Often 1 is the goal, but it's okay for now to be up to 1.5 or 2 as well. Okay, One thing I want you to know here or see is the importance also of the format. The key information is in bold and each line of the bullet point is short. So I never have one bullet point that's like a whole long paragraph. Every bullet point is either one line or 2 lines long. And the dates when it was completed are very, very clearly stated over on the right-hand side. So everything is aligned nicely. It looks professional. It's easy to read. And if I'm looking only very, very quickly, I can easily see, okay, this person is studying at the University of Waterloo. They have a high school degree from this particular place in Kitchener. They've done these 3 projects. So I can see the main points first. And then if I'm interested, then I can read a bit more in their bullet points. All right. So I'm going to stop screen sharing for a second. And what I'd like you to do, I'm going to stop talking for a moment. I want you to think, do you have any questions? Maybe about why it's done like that, how you decide what to do. I'm just going to mute myself for a minute and let you think for at least 30 seconds. And please open the chat and put in your questions before we move on to the next point. Okay, so far I'm not seeing questions, which is fine, but do remember that if you have them, it's the best possible way to learn if you put them in. So feel free to put in questions, and I'm not afraid to just let you guys think for a little bit because it's a really useful way to learn. Okay, so one more thing I want to show you before I actually get you started practicing something. Ooh, great question, Georgina. Thank you. Georgina says, what if I don't have any work experience? What can I write? That is a really good question. For a lot of us, when we're just starting university, we might not have a lot of work experience because you're in high school. Often you're very focused on your clubs and activities and your studies and the things that you've done. So the good news is you can include things that are volunteer as well. So many of you, especially if you were in Ontario for high school, you had to do some volunteering of some kind. Or if you were on a sports team, that also is relevant to employers. You might think, why would they care that I play sports? But if it's a formal sports team that required teamwork and planning and commitment and all those things, that shows a lot of the skills that your employers want. So think about anything you did. It could even be a class project, as you saw that section on relevant projects that also showed your teamwork, that also showed your creativity or whatever they want to see. Okay. So now I have a question for you, and I want to hear from you in the chat. How do I know which skills the employer wants? I want to hear your thoughts. How would I know which skills of a certain employer wants from me? And I want to see you just taking a guess. So open that chat and just tell me, how would you maybe know what an employer wants? Even if you're not sure, try to hazard a guess. Excellent, Andrew. Yes, yes. Thank you, Kevin, too. Absolutely. So people are saying there will be a job description. Yes, yes, yes. And people are saying search the company's website to learn more about the job and make sure you have the skills that are needed. Well done. The fact that you know this means you are already ahead of some of the job searchers out there. Some people just say, oh, I'll just write a resume and send it. And the most important thing, as you're saying, is you need to read the job description. Absolutely. So that was exactly what I wanted you to say so that we can move on to the next aspect, which is an example of a job description. So I told you that the sample resume I showed you earlier was applying for an engineering job, and it was this Toyota job. So this was from last year. You'll see it's from 2020, but you can obviously find new ones from current years. So it says the exact dates. It says where it will happen. Hopefully the job description will say who to contact. It doesn't always tell you, but hopefully it does, so you know who to write your cover letter to. It says, in this case, it tells you what you would get out of the job. They don't always tell you that. And then it tells you what the actual role is. So for this person, they were applying for quality control engineering intern, and they were going to be helping with various parts of Toyota's process. And it says more about that here. So we see words like design. And what I do when I read this is I go through and I specifically highlight words that I think I could use. So design, performance, then it gives other specifics. Powertrain, chassis, electrical, interior, exterior. So I can just be thinking, this is what I'll be working on. Is there anything that I have that's relevant? And here it also has the word problem solving. So if you ever actually find a job you really, really want, the first thing to do is to download that job description, if it is downloadable, or make a copy in some way. And then, oh, sorry, somebody said you can't see the screen share. Oh, my mistake. Let's try this again. Okay, sorry about that. Allison, can you see it now? Okay, you're probably like, what is she talking about? My mistake. Okay, so what I was showing earlier, the beginning didn't matter too much. It's just the beginning of a job description that says what the job is. In this case, it was saying it was from May 2020 to August 2020. It's from last year, as I said. It was happening in Woodstock or Cambridge here in Ontario. It gave a contact name. And then it's talking about the role. So what will you actually do in this job? So the part that I was explaining and didn't show well is that I go through and pick out the words that might be useful for me to use. So I see that it will be related to design and performance. There will be problem solving. And then I look more specifically at the required skills and the key responsibility. So first part, here we have, again, problem solving activities. I can tell they really want me to show that I can solve problems. Then there's manufacturing. So if I have any experience with manufacturing, which probably a lot of people don't coming into university, I could mention that. So I'm just going to highlight it in case I have any kind of experience. Then it talks about safety, quality, and productivity. So if I have any experience when I was looking at the safety of anything, I might be wanting to address that. Product challenges. So if I have ever designed anything in the past, or if I've troubleshot some code or something, I might talk about that. And then some other kind of more general things that they have you do. And then it says, what are you actually going to need to offer us? So not a surprise, they're going to mention problem solving skills again. So there are some skills that the employer really, really wants, and they're just going to mention it a lot. So once you see that a lot, you know you must put that in your resume. Analytical and problem solving skills. Many of you who are here are math students. You would be able to easily show mathematical aptitude if you were applying for this job. Then there are other equally important skills that might not be so technical. Communication skills. You really need to show that you can communicate. The ability to explain something complicated in a simple way, which is something you're doing now in your iBASE courses. So I'm going to highlight that too. And then here we have a lot of other words. Self-motivation, flexibility. So is there something you can show that you were working on something and you had to be flexible, that you were willing to change if something unexpected happened? Team mindset. Again, that's where I was mentioning sports teams. You can show, even if you were on a sports team or a chess team or something like that, you can show that you were doing that, even if it wasn't an actual paid job that you were doing. Same with organizational skills. You can show that through either employment or volunteering or schoolwork. Dedication, And then here it says languages. Knowledge of French or Japanese is an asset, but that's not required. Asset means it's extra. It would be great, but you don't have to have it. Yeah, so if you look at this list in any job description, I'm not saying you would apply for this exact one, but if you look at the list, you don't have to meet every requirement in order to apply. As long as you can meet most of the things, and a lot of these are general skills that most people can show they have, then you can still apply, as long as it's something that you're interested in and you think you would do a good job at. So once I've gone through the job description, then I actually start to work on the resume and choose words and put them in. So let me just see really quickly. Here's one question I'd like you to answer in the chat. This might seem very, very obvious, but not everybody remembers this. So could you tell me in the chat, why is it important to use keywords from the job description in your resume? I would love for every single person on this call, just put in one answer. It can be a short answer in your chat. Why do you think it would be important to use keywords from the job description in your resume? Even if it seems like so obvious why it's important, just put it in there so that we make sure we're on the same page, because there's a few different good reasons to do that. And I'll stop screen sharing for just a second so I can more easily monitor the chat. Okay, so again, the question for the chat, and I know some of you are typing, which is good. Why would you want to use those keywords? Think also of the employer. Good, Amy, excellent. So Amy says to be invited to an interview. Yes, Andy, excellent. To show them who you are, that you are who they are looking for. Yes. Iris says to show that people meet their requirements. Absolutely, absolutely. To attract their attention. Thank you, Anne. Absolutely. All of these are so good. And if you're still typing, please still put it in, because I love to see a lot of different ways that we can come at this. So yes, it shows that you have read the job description, and to meet those requirements and to show that you can actually contribute and do what they want. Absolutely. Because maybe, for example, on that list I just showed you, maybe I'm a really good leader. I am so good, I can lead a team like nobody else. But those leadership skills were not listed on that job description. They're not asking me as a co-op student to come and lead a team. They're asking me to help on a team. So they want to see my teamwork and my collaboration. And if all I talk about on my resume is how good of a leader I am, that's not going to show them that I'm good for that job. It's great that maybe I'm good for another job, but it's not showing that I want that job. Yes, absolutely. I'm seeing Andrew and Justin are agreeing with that. The employer will see what they want. And that's the point. We want to show that we can fit what they're looking for. Yes, thank you, Helen and Bofan. Yes, absolutely. That we can suit that particular job. Very good. Okay, let me see if I don't mess up this screen share again. Let me see if I can go to full screen for a second. Okay, so you gave great answers there. Can everybody see my full screen now, or my screen share? Yeah, good. Okay, so as you guys all just said, it shows that you understand the requirements and then that you meet those requirements. So everybody was absolutely on the right track for that. Another thing to know is sometimes if you're applying to a very large company, maybe in the future you want to work for Google or Amazon or one of those large companies that needs a lot of mathematicians, that needs people with your skill set. A lot of times they receive so many applications that they actually put their applications through an AI system. So a computer system will look at the applications and it will search for those keywords. If it does not find them, it might reject your application before a person even ever sees your resume. So that's why, again, it's so important, whether it's a person or AI seeing your resume, you must include those keywords. Otherwise, it's very likely that you won't even get an interview. So the task we're going to work on for just a little bit before Allison shares some really great insight, you're going to be able to start your own resume as I guide you. And let's try to use some of these keywords that I've listed here. I haven't given you an entire job description of your own because we don't have time for you to go through, read it all, and then create a resume. But some of these skills I've listed here are required in almost every job. So almost pretty much every job I can think of requires good communication skills. It also requires some form of teamwork, also problem solving, and some of them have research. And because you're doing research now in iBASE and you're doing some writing and you're doing some learning, I think you can show that you have that. So let's try, as you're working through just trying out your resume, to maybe write 1 or 2 bullet points about something related to at least one of these: communication, teamwork, problem solving, or research. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And in the chat, I'm going to share a file so that hopefully, if this is going to work, so that hopefully you can also open it. So just give me 1 second, sorry. Okay. Oh, whoops. I just sent it just to Allison. Sorry, Allison. Let's try this again. So now if you open the chat, you should see a Word document that's called Resume Template 1. The template's going to look very similar to the actual sample that I showed you because I chose the same format. So if you could open the chat and try to download that, hopefully you have Microsoft Word access. If you do not have Microsoft Word access, please let me know in the chat because there's a way you can download it through your University of Waterloo account. But if you could open that up, and then once you have it open, could you just in the chat just type done or yes or something simple so that I know that it's open and you're ready to go. That way, yeah, or you can give me a thumbs up on your reaction. That's an even better idea. Thanks, Mike and Bill. Thanks, Tianai and Andrew. Good. Yes. Wonderful. I see people are getting that open. Okay. Okay, Andy. Oh, beautiful. Okay. I'm glad to see everybody getting that open. So then I will aim to get mine open too. Okay. Beautiful. So are people able to see my screen share too? If you are looking at the Zoom, yeah? Okay. So what I'd like you to do is just take a minute to follow along. You can put in your own information into this first part, just briefly. So go ahead and put in your name. So for me, my name is Bethany Dixon, so I'm putting mine. You should put yours. Don't copy what I'm doing. And you don't need to put your address right this second. You can do that later, but you can put your email. So for me, my short version of my email is b3dixon@uwaterloo.ca. And then you can go ahead and put in your phone number. So keep the same format, but just replace the X's with numbers. So often if you're in Ontario, it might be something like 519 or 226 or something. And then you can actually put in, I'm just going to put in random numbers here. So you guys don't need to know my phone number, but you can actually put in yours because you're not going to be sharing this with me or anybody else right now. So go ahead and put in your real phone number because you do have to have your real contact information, of course, when you're applying for a job. And whatever you do here gets you closer to being ready to actually apply. Even if you don't do co-op, I know some of you will or some of you won't, but if you don't do co-op, you still might want to have a summer job at some point or do something where you want to use a resume, even for a part-time job during studies. Some people do that too. Okay, so make sure to use your UWaterloo one if possible, especially if you're applying for co-op. It has to be your UWaterloo email address. And then whatever phone number works to reach you. For now, we're going to actually skip the summary because usually you do the summary at the end. After you've done the rest, then you're summarizing what was in the rest of it. So if you go down here, the way you would actually fill this in is to put in the name of your degree. So, or you could even just put the name of your program. Some people just put the name of their program. So I'm not sure for all of you. I'm going to give the, let me see. Actually, I'm not sure what the name is for your particular degrees in math. I'll give the example from engineering. So some people just say computer engineering. But you could do like pure mathematics or applied mathematics or whatever you know the name is of yours. Some people say the name of their degree, which is Bachelor of Applied Science or something, but you can just put your program. And then the name of the university for everyone here is University of Waterloo. And then you can say when you expect to get that. So you could say expected June of 2025 or 2026, or whenever you expect to get your degree. And then if it messes up the alignment, then you can just realign it a little bit. So that gets you started a little bit to know that you actually have to replace the information that's on here. So if you see something that says name of degree, then you delete that and put in your actual name. For anybody who went to school in Ontario, in general, your name of the high school degree is going to be the Ontario Secondary School Diploma. And then you could put the name of the high school. If you were in school somewhere else, you could just call it a high school diploma unless you have a specific name. Some people did the IB, so that's the International Baccalaureate Diploma. And then you put the name of your high school. So I'm just going to use an example of one in Kitchener. And then again, you'll put the month and the year when you received it. So for many of you, you just got that diploma. So it might be June of 2021. And you don't need the exact day, but just the year and the month. And then you can state where it was. So in this case, that would be in Kitchener, Ontario, or ON. If you have relevant courses for what you're applying for, this is where you would list them. So let's say for that example, they would be listing it for something related to engineering. She might want to say that she took physics, which looked at mechanical motion. Maybe she took calculus, which looked at, you don't even have to say what it focused on, but calculus and other things. So if you want to list relevant courses, you can, depending on what you're applying for. But that depends again on if you have relevant courses to that job. And then here, it's up to you. If you don't have a lot of relevant class projects, you could even delete this section or move it later. Experience is where you put both your paid and your volunteer experience. If you have a lot of both of those, you can split it and have one for work experience, one for volunteer. But in general, I recommend that people just put it together. And then if you have awards, you can put the name of your award. Maybe you got the President's Award or something coming into UW. Or another scholarship, or you did some other, like a lot of you did math competitions, either through UW or through other places. You can put those awards that you got. And then another option is to put some activities that you also enjoy or that you've done, so clubs or something like that. Okay, so I know we don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, to actually put all the information in, but hopefully that gives you a little sense of how to start filling in your resume. You may keep this template and finish filling it in. You also could choose a different template because online there are a lot of templates. But what I recommend is whatever you choose, make it be simple, not something with a lot of colors or a lot of, you don't want a picture of you on the resume because here it's not as common. That's common in some other cultures or countries, but here We just usually use the information. So keep it simple. This one that I chose so far has been the one I think that has worked best for students. So that's why I gave it to you. But you can keep this and keep using it for your actual resume, or you can use one that you like. Okay. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. And if anybody has any questions, definitely let me know. And I'm going to then hand it over to Allison.
Hi. So thank you, Bethany. That was super helpful, even for me, just learning a little bit more. It's always important to kind of freshen up on your skills for resumes and understand a little bit more on what employers are looking for, because it does change very often. So I am going to share my screen here as well. If I can find what I'm looking for. Perfect. So I just want to talk a little bit quickly about kind of what it's like to find jobs in Canada. And can everyone see the screen okay here? Perfect, thank you. So building Canadian experience, especially as a student. So we do have access to a website called Waterloo Works. I'll send the website in the chat. I honestly didn't realize that it was accessible to every Waterloo student until after I graduated. So that is a really nice kind of bit of advice too. I thought that it was only for students in co-op, but everyone is able to use it, which is really great. And it is a good tool to sort of gain extra experience and find different ways to get job experience and find who's hiring Waterloo students specifically. So yeah, they occasionally offer job fairs and information sessions, and they can connect you to the Center for Career Action at the university as well. So they have a lot of workshops to prepare you for interviews and just general professional development training, which is really good to have and can actually like help you out with your resumes a lot. Something that Bethany talked about was volunteering. So if you don't quite have the job experience and you still need something to put on your resume, volunteering will actually make up quite a bit of your experience, especially going through university. I always think that it's nice to volunteer, especially when you have a full course load, because it's not going to be as time consuming as a full job might be. And you don't have the exact same kind of pressing need to be there every time. And you kind of just go with the flow and when you're scheduled, and it works around what works for you a lot easier than some jobs might. So volunteering on campus can look like being an orientation week leader or leading a club is something that will gain you a lot of leadership and teamwork experience. We do have the iBASE rep, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a minute. That's a super great way to gain experience as well. We even have smaller ones where you can be a move-in day volunteer and volunteer on campus and help the first years move into their residences, or a campus tour guide, or you can volunteer more in the community and volunteer at a hospital or homeless shelter or with animals or something, just something that interests you and maybe it's more connected to a job that you might want in the future, or it's something that you've considered working in, but you're not entirely sure if that's the field for you. So getting volunteer experience can actually help you to understand a lot more about what you're looking for in a job and where you want to take your career. So it's a really fun way to just get different experiences. That makes sense. Another thing I'd like to touch on is just having Canadian references. So when you're applying to jobs in Canada, you will be asked for references who are typically a former employer who will say how good you are at working or how much they enjoyed working with you in the past. So it's very important that these references are easily accessible and they know you personally and they speak fluent English. So it's easy for them to communicate with whoever your next employer might be. So these can be like your instructors who have watched you with your teamwork skills on a very big project that they gave you, or a manager or supervisor from either a paid job or a volunteer experience. So these are people who you've worked closely with and people who know exactly who you are and what kind of work that you can put out. So making these references and kind of networking in that way and connecting with your employers as you go is super important. So you always want to be sure that you're putting your best foot forward and getting to know the people that you're working with, because later on you might need their help to get another job. So in the picture here, it says references available upon request. In my experience, every single position I have applied for has asked for references, and I think the majority of them have always reached out and contacted them. So just try to make sure that you have someone who you've worked with very recently. They typically ask for about 3. So if you have maybe 1 instructor, 1 old manager, and 1 volunteer supervisor, it gives them a good idea of how you work on all aspects of what you've been doing for the past couple of years. So where can you find job or volunteer postings while you're studying is, I know, something that a lot of you are wondering, because I've already gotten a bunch of questions about this since we started just this month. So one of the best places to go is EADS. So it is leads.uwaterloo.ca. So on this website, you will see all of the available positions for both paid work and volunteer opportunities on campus. So they have all of the student-centered job postings, like certain club leaders, orientation week leaders, and any sort of campus food jobs will be posted there. Your peer leaders would have applied for their jobs through EADS. So getting familiar with it and kind of keeping up with it and seeing what jobs are around. Sometimes they'll have postings for tutors that they want, volunteer note takers, or people in the writing center. And these are all really great experiences that you can put on your resume, and they can kind of help you move forward and gain more connections within the Waterloo community. And of course, iBASE rep. If you haven't applied or joined yet, I highly recommend that you do. So this is an amazing way to gain volunteer experience. Afterwards, you get a certificate saying that you were a part of BASE rep, which looks really nice on a resume. You can also use your student experience coordinators, both Alex and Cece, as references later on, who can kind of vouch for how good you were in the meetings and how well you worked as teams. And it helps you gain the skills that you can add to your resume. So Bethany talked earlier about a lot of the soft skills that will be in the job descriptions that you see later on. So like your teamwork, leadership, communication, and creativity skills, they don't always seem as important when you're developing them, but later on, that's exactly what the employers are going to be looking for. And to be able to say, I was a part of iBASE rep back when I started at the University of Waterloo. We put together a virtual cultural fair. These are the ways that I worked with my team. This was a problem that we faced, and this is how we solved it. And having that experience and being able to outline it in an interview or on your resume will be super beneficial for you. So the link is there, and I will send it in the chat as well after this. And I think we still have so many spots left, and you have until the 8 o'clock on Thursday, I believe, to register. So please do that. You will not regret it. It is the most fun. And finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the student leadership program. So it's a free series of 6 workshops. If you attend all 6 before you graduate from the University of Waterloo, then you get to earn a special certificate, and it's signed by the president. So that's super impressive. And each workshop will highlight a new leadership skill that you get to learn about and develop in a professional setting. So these can be used to, like, on your resume to highlight your skills. You also get to learn how to kind of sell yourself with these skills to a future employer and develop it in a more professional setting. So they will go through a bunch of different ways to really connect you with these skills and show you how to use them in many different aspects of your life. So definitely register for this. It is really great. Employers do look for all of these ways that you have tried to build your skills and tried to do better and improve. So be sure to register for that. I believe registration for the first program closes tomorrow, and the first workshop is Wednesday morning, I believe. So I will send that in the chat as well. I believe that was all I had, so I'll stop sharing here. And did anyone have just any questions overall, either for myself about experience in Canada specifically, or for Bethany about your resumes in general?
So I'm just interested to hear from all of you as you think of your questions. Thank you so much, Allison. That was so helpful. Just as you said that mine was helpful to you, I was like, oh, there are a lot of those things that I didn't think of or didn't know. I am interested to hear, and I don't have this on a pre-made poll, but if you could give me either a yes in the chat or no, are you considering applying for a job at some point in the next 2 years? Like either a part-time job or hopefully getting into co-op or anything. So give me a yes if you think that yes, at some point you'll apply for something, especially here in Canada. Yeah, just interested. Okay, that's great. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Let's see. Oh, I like it. And you guys are very quick getting that open. So I see from Andy, Iris, Amy, Bofung, Justin, that's a lot. Helen, awesome. Kevin, Anne, One Kai, Andrew. Oh, wow, lots of yeses. That's wonderful. So as Allison said, this time in BASE is such a good time to get your resume ready, basically. So you can actually work on the resume itself. You can work on getting the volunteer experience and the references. I have had students come back and ask me to be a reference for them, especially the year after that I was working with them. And a lot of the times they do get the jobs. So that's very exciting to see. And it's because they took the time for me to get to know them as an instructor. So that's another thing, thinking about your classes. You have one of your wonderful instructors here, Georgina. If you take the time to go to your office hours so that your instructor meets you personally, and of course, if you show good work in the classes, then they can be a good reference. So maybe later, if you're applying for a job that needs a lot of speaking skills, you can talk to Georgina and say, Georgina, would you mind talking about those skills? Or if it's more a writing-based course, or sorry, job, then you might want somebody like Corey or somebody to talk about your skills. And then, as Allison said, you can also get those invaluable experiences to show you've done something. Also, you have a supervisor who can be your reference. So useful. Yeah. So we have just a couple more minutes. I'm interested, now that you've heard all about this, I want to hear from everybody here, also to know that you're still here for the last 5 minutes. Tell me one thing that you think you might do as your next step. It could be sign up for something. It could be start to fill in that resume template, anything. I'd like to hear from every single person. What do you want to do as your next step from this workshop? Or you could even be ask another question or something like that. So if you can just in the chat, tell me one thing you think you want to do next, that would be great. And then I have a couple last polls to close. Good. Yes. We're seeing some people make specific plans, and those specific plans are going to get you so much closer to having a job and to having a network. As Allison said, networks and connections and relationships are so important. Okay, so I'm seeing do more volunteering, which again, you can already start in the iBASE rep. That is an example of volunteering, unless you already have another area of volunteering. Register for SLP, yes. Sign up for iBASE rep, excellent. Okay, so I'm still interested to see from everybody else, if you're still around. I've seen 4 people share what they're planning to do. Anybody else? Allison, do you want to answer that question that just came in about SLP?
Yeah, I believe SLP does start tomorrow. I know Ryan has sent a little bit more information on it in the chat, and I'll resend that again tonight. It is the first workshop, I think, has 11 spaces left in it as of right now. So you want to get signed up as soon as you can. I believe it's tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning. So register for that.
Excellent. Yes. And as you guys know, the SLP is not just for, BASE students or whatever, it's for everybody. So that's why it really does fill up fast. Thanks, Andrew, for asking those questions, and Allison for telling us all about that. That's awesome. Okay, so this is giving you an idea of how to use this time. And I know iBASE is busy, but the crazy thing is you'll be even busier when you're on campus with all your math courses and everything. So if you can use this time when you actually have things that are already created for you, like iBASE Rep is a volunteer opportunity where you don't have to go out and find a new organization and say, oh, could I volunteer with you? What would be my role? It takes so much organization. With iBASE Rep, they've done that for you, and you just have to show up. You'll be on a team and you'll do something really interesting. And it will show not just all those things, those teamwork and communication, but also some virtual skills. It shows that you can organize a virtual event, which is very useful these days. Even though we're opening up more, so many things are still online. So I highly recommend iBASE Rep. It's probably the easiest way you can get some really great volunteering experience while you're here and meet other great people to have good connections. So highly, highly recommend. So one last very quick thing I wanted to mention to you. Allison, is it all right if I move on to that little cover letter piece, or do you want me to? Yeah, okay. So today's workshop was about resumes and building that experience that goes on the resumes. The other document that you will be using is a cover letter. Could you just quickly tell me, either through a reaction, just a thumbs up reaction, or just a yes or no in the chat, have you heard of a cover letter before? Yes or no? Okay, I'm seeing some no's, I'm seeing some yeses. Interesting, good. Some people are saying no. Okay, that's great. I didn't think you probably would have, especially if resumes are new, then cover letters are also quite new. The idea of a cover letter is that you send a letter with your resume that's just 1 page long, so never more than 1 page. I know resumes can be more than 1 page, but cover letters should not be. It's just 1 page that says this is why I'm excited about the job. It's like you introducing yourself and showing your enthusiasm and then sharing a few of the main things that grab their attention about why you would be good for this job. So it's really your first introduction to the employer. And for me, when I hire, because I've worked separately in another role where I have to hire interns, I always look first at the cover letter. And if it's a good cover letter, then I'll go look at the resume. Not all employers require a cover letter, but a lot of them do. So the reason I'm bringing this up at the end is just to let you know that cover letters exist and that if you'd be interested in learning more about them, we may be able to find a way to share more information with you. So I know we're out of time, but just so you know the very, very basics, let me see if I can just show you what it looks like. I'll just share my whole screen for a second. It's just going to look something like this that does have more full sentences. So you have your name and address and all that at the top, and then some short paragraphs and the end, like a normal letter would. That's all I wanted to show you on that. So let me see. Allison, do you mind launching, because I don't have access anymore to the polls since I gave you the host. Okay, so what I'd be interested in having you answer is these two questions. Would you like to attend a workshop in the future that's focused on cover letter writing to learn about that? And number two, would you like to have a workshop on interviews, which is, as you know, the next step. If they like your resume and your cover letter, then they give you an interview. Would you like more information about that? So if you could please answer that poll. And then click submit. I'm going to skew your results, Allison, and answer it myself.
It won't be very skewed. It's pretty unanimous.
Okay. Excellent. So Allison can tell us what it's looking like, or I guess in a minute. Yeah. There we go.
Oh, look at that. One person did not want a cover letter writing workshop, but the majority of people are looking for yes for both. So
excellent. And I'm glad to see everyone's interested in the interviews. And you're right, that is super important. As soon as you get through that resume stage, and if they like it, you need to know that. And Georgina is really good at teaching interviews. Okay, that's what we wanted to know. Thank you. We will be talking as a team here to see what we can do for those future workshops, if we can make those possible for you as well. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, Allison. It was so fun leading this with you. I learned so much from you.
So did I. So this is awesome. And thank you everyone for coming. We hope you gained so much out of this like we did.
Yeah, and thank you, Georgina, for coming as well. It's lovely to have you here. And to everyone who showed up, thank you. Thank you for your comments in the chat and everything. It was wonderful. So we will be in touch again to let you know if there are going to be follow-up workshops. And if we can't do those workshops, we'll at least try to give you some resources and stuff. And yeah, feel free always to reach out. If you have any questions for me, my email, I'm going to put it in the chat, is bethany.dixon@uwaterloo.ca. It's just my name. If you ever lose that, you can always ask Georgina or Allison. They both have my contact information, and I know you're in touch with both of them for other reasons. And actually, I get to know most of you, if you're, for those in math, through your Pebble Pads in Corey's course. So I get to see those too. So that's fun. Yeah, so thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you very much. This was incredibly valuable. And I love to see everybody coming to this today. You have no idea right now how valuable this will be to you later on. So this was fantastic. Thank you very much, Allison and Bethany. This was great. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Take care.
Mm-hmm.